I had spoken to a few of the veterans. I said, I have this idea. I had the domain name for a couple years now, and I said, I really want to do this, but I don't know if I'm better now. Like, am I okay? Like, because you don't want to start something and then just stop.
Yeah, right.
So, can I do this? Do I have support? And I said, what if I fall? I said, Zach, we're here.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all you need is that little bit of spark, right? That aha moment in life to say, okay, I'm going to be okay, no matter what. In China, they learn math. Yeah. They're learning educational content. Here, we have a lot of dancing.
How to dance.
Yeah. You're right.
That's wild.
Again, it goes back to IP addresses and positioning and firewalls and all that jazz. But at the same time, you got the app stores here, Android and iOS for Apple. They turned them off, remember, for 16 hours. And then the Trump administration had said, okay, turn them back on.
All right, and welcome back to the Bull Strong Podcast. I am your host, Craig Nadeau, and today we have on the show someone really interesting. His name's Zach. He's with the Canadian Podcast, and he does some fabulous work, and I encourage you to go and check out his program. We're going to be talking about podcasting, obviously, how we got into it. In the program, we get to cover some pretty cool topics, some pretty out there topics, how it affects even the podcast environment. So a great conversation, and hopefully you enjoy the show. Please, if you like us, like this show, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and certainly follow our sponsor, Partner Staffing, on LinkedIn. If there's anything that you'd like to see on the show, please comment. We follow and listen to those comments and love to follow up on those things as well. Enjoy the show, and this is Zach. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So glad to have you. So made your way in. Glad you found us. Zach, you're, I guess I know you as a podcaster, and and so, and we, in some way, we kind of started up about the same time doing podcasts. You probably take it way more seriously than I do. So at some point, we're gonna, talk a little bit about podcasting. And
I don't know about that. Look at this setup here; it's beautiful.
Well, we just spend money. I don't know if we may not do a great job. You do a great job, and I think that you have a lot of great followers and a lot of great guests, and it's great to watch your show too. So
it's an honor, and I know you believe that as well, to have the guests on and to hear their stories.
Yeah, and I guess the other who you are, you're a Calgary entrepreneur, and you're leaning a bit into AI, and probably an up and comer in our marketplace. That's probably exciting.
It's exciting, but it's at the same time challenging because, again, there's the people that are so interested in AI, and then there's the folks that are, just watching on the sidelines. Yeah. And then there's the naysayers. So you're finding out all the exciting things about AI, the tools, the tips, but at the same time, where are the use cases? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't know, we had a lady on a while back, Rebecca Boltzma, and she was... she's all about AI, and as she was talking, she was saying, I run like 5 to 10 AI tools all at the same time, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't even know if I'm logged into an AI tool. And then, some of our staff, they use AI to develop content and pick through things, and I was like, well, I am so far behind right now.
That's okay.
I don't know.
Sometimes it's nice to stay on the sidelines, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe it gives a different perspective too, so I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. But, and it's going to be interesting to see content shift over the time. Yeah. I think what we're going to see is people less on social media, actually, because we're not going to know what's real. I've been playing around with AI film clips and AI film content, and some of it actually looks realistic.
Really?
So I post it here and there on my social media pages just to kind of see what do people think.
Yeah.
And some people get nervous, and some think it's absolutely cool. So.
Wow. It's I had this one guy, this is a while back, and this is how AI impacts me, I suppose. And I had asked them a series of questions. They were hiring questions. We were interviewing them to hire them. And then it was like I probably sent him 7 or 8 questions and had some commentary in around it. And he sent back what was clearly an AI response. and then when I read it, and it's like, this guy put no thought into this. Like, and yet read like AI, and I'm sure AI's gotten better, but it was like, wow.
You know what? I think it can be used as an assistant. Just don't let it take over your mind, is what I'll say.
Yeah.
You can get ideas from it or expand on certain things.
Yeah.
I use it as an assistant. So sometimes if I have a question, I'm like, I need to dive deeper into this. What do you think?
Yeah.
Am I missing something here? What should I look for? And then they'll give me some ideas. And that's good.
So you have a bunch of AI things going on. Like, what is, you have a podcast, AI with Zach, AI magazine. Like, what are, just the short story, what are those things right now? How are they impacting the world?
Oh, well, I don't know about the world, but for myself,
Thinking big.
it's been a journey. I think I'm a hands-on learner. So I needed to get into it and just start playing around. I needed to start talking to people. And AI as itself is huge. It's vast. I needed to niche down and say, okay, where do I fit into this world? What do I enjoy? I've been someone that loves technology, but at the same time, where will AI be practical for businesses? Because I think at the end of the day, it's, there's a bunch of tools out there, and if we're not using them and just playing around, well, great. Do it as a hobby. So the AI podcast is mainly, again, focused on folks from the AI and film, AI and marketing, AI and education. Right. So I'm seeing teachers actually in BC use AI in their classrooms. I think that's kind of neat for the presentations. Again, you've heard this before. It's how you're going to use AI. It's not about just AI taking over the jobs, right? So we've all heard that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that. Like, it's so easy just to, I'm just going to let AI do it. You can still do it. You don't have to let AI drive into it and do it all for you.
No. There's Canada doesn't have an AI film fest.
Oh, really?
No. And again, it's one of those taboo topics that people get nervous about. And I thought, okay, well, why not bring it here? We have so many great creators and artists, and AI is just a tool, right? There's CGI in Avatar and Titanic. James Cameron used it. Spielberg's used it.
There's an AI film fest? Really?
Well, there are in Amsterdam. There are in the States. In Arizona, they just launched one, AI Film 3. However, Canada does not have one yet. So I thought, why not bring one out here? But at the same time, I've kind of talked to a few people in the industry and said, well, Zach, it's going to affect people's jobs and all of that. And obviously, I never want to do that. So I just want to show the talent, the tools, the skill sets. Right. I was playing around with some AI film clips, like I said. I had to create a voice. I had to create a script for that character. Right. So there's a lot that's going to happen. I think what's going to be needed is different jobs for different tasks, different roles in that industry. I think with or without us, it's here. The genie's out of the bottle. So.
It's it's funny when you think of. I think the movie environment, it's protective of itself, and when you go back and you watch a movie that I would have watched as a kid, and there's like the credits start rolling and there's 13 people, versus now where there's just like, it's 1,000 people. It's a very different environment now. So.
It is, but it's a fun time. I think we just gotta be careful.
Yeah. Anyways, we had the one of the actors and the director and producer of the movie came on, and it was all about men's health, and it was interesting because I suppose they could have done some of that with AI. They could have. Would it have been better or worse? I don't know. Like, it would be interesting to run a control and then do it, and I don't know. It would be interesting.
Well, there was a scene I heard on a podcast recently that Ted Lasso. They didn't have time to bring extras for the background at a baseball game or something.
Oh, yeah.
So they used AI to populate the background. So, great.
Yeah. Isn't that just it's just CGI with AI attached?
Yes.
No one thinks that in the movie Gladiator that all of those humans were actually sitting in the Coliseum.
They were.
It was
That's
just
exactly
computer generated, so who cares? So
yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. At the same time, I'm passionate about AI agents, agentic AI automation. I think that's the future for business. Because, again, it goes back to where will business be able to use this? Because if they can't, then it's a nice to have.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing a lot is, folks say, well, I have AI in my business. Or we've now implemented AI, so we're an AI thinking business, and I thought, okay, well, what do you guys have? We have a chat bot.
Perfect.
Great. Not one of those again.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I think, I don't know if the chatbot's serving you well, because it just puts the clients. Remember the ads that ATB used to run? Those ads, it's like you actually pick up the phone, you're talking to a human. Yeah, those days are gone.
Oh yeah, I mean, you pick up the phone now and you're talking to press 1 for this, press 2.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. Can you repeat that again? Yeah. Oh my.
I just get into the agent.
Yeah. 0, 0, 0. Yeah.
And then the chatbot's like, we don't understand your answer. Yeah. Goodbye. And it's like, oh, you got to start
20 minutes later.
Oh, it's so bad. But yeah, that's cool. Like, and AI is interesting. I don't know. Like, it's interesting how it might play into podcasts, but I don't know. Like, it may play into the editing more than anything. I'm not sure exactly how it plays in, but.
Well, it's interesting. On Spotify, I created a podcast just for fun. Yeah. This was before I created the AI podcast.ca. And it was AI Chronicles. It's still up there. And basically, I prompted a script, have 2 guests speaking.
Really?
And they don't exist. They're not real people.
Wow.
And it sounds real. There's the pauses, the ums.
Yeah.
And they just went on and made a whole podcast, and it sounds like you're on the radio.
Yeah, what did the podcast turn into? Like, what was it about?
Anything I wanted. So I would just pick a topic of the day and then just put it up. Yeah.
Wow.
It's still up there. Wild. I'll send it to you after to check out. It's really neat.
Really wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was this might be too racy and maybe gets edited out later, but someone did they had 2 podcast engines talking to each other, and they were supposed to talk like normal humans. And then it devolved into a conversation about dildos. And I was like, what the heck? And it was, I guess that was the normal de-evolution of every conversation. It was kind of the way that the AI saw it. And it's like, wow, that is bizarre.
That is funny.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see, 2025 with agentic AI agents.
Oh, okay.
So basically, we could get an AI to do the tasks for us. So, Carol here, she did... all the pre-prep for the podcast episode today. You could just tell an agent, hey, I'm going to have Zach on. Can you have a look at XYZ about Zach? Can you get some questions and ideas and thoughts? And based on my previous interviews, my style, what do you think I should ask Zach? Or what do you think we should talk about? And basically, within 30 seconds or less, that AI agent has gone through the whole web.
Wow.
And brought it all to you and layered it out, structured it, brought out the key points, and this is what you need to do.
That's pretty wild, actually.
It is. And you can do that with travel. You can say, hey, I want to go somewhere. I need to get some tickets. I want to go to this zoo. I want to see this fireworks show. But it's my budget. And I also only eat this, whatever. Let's say I'm a vegan. Yeah. I'm not, but let's say that.
Yeah.
And basically, it will create the itinerary for you. Say, do you confirm this, yes or no? And then you can be able to book your
That's pretty wild, eh?
Ticket, yeah.
Mine would be like, yeah, you can't afford that. you need more money. Well, that's wild. So, now you got into podcasting. This is, you have an AI podcast, but you got into podcasting. Why? What was your genesis story? We were talking about that a little bit earlier, but why'd you even start?
For sure. So in 2019, my mom had just turned 55, and she passed away with brain cancer.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was tough, and I think moms are pillars for so many of us. And mama's boy, if you want to call it. But I was very close to her. Mm-hmm. And I think once that all happened, I kind of lost my way. I lost my path. Alcohol was something that was messing with me a lot. Mm-hmm. For many years, actually, and I just didn't understand it. Like, I needed to grow up.
Yeah.
I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I needed to call myself out on my own bullshit. So I finally realized I got to stop. But Mom passes away, 2019, August 7th. The pandemic comes around, 2020, right? So we're in this pandemic. I'm alone. I have a little French bulldog. He's the best. Aristotle. Shout out. If he's hearing it. But, I'm at home. And 2020, the alcohol consumption just starts going up. And just sick of life.
This probably was a bit of a common story. Like it wasn't unique to you. There was probably
but again, at that moment,
yeah.
I'm going out when the bars are open, at the pub, local pub. Yeah. I'd go with a friend for a beer, and it was never one. Yeah. Some people could go for one, and I know friends that can do that and go home and be okay. For me, it was different. I would drink till I couldn't drink anymore. Yeah. And it didn't matter if, we would go for lunch, we'll have a beer, you'll go back to work, I'll continue on. That was my life, and I was always apologizing for doing silly things or saying silly things, and I don't know. It just it spiraled, and then one night I was drinking, and I was just done with life. I just want to call it quits, and woke up the next day on the floor, and I was alive, and I was like, holy crap. Okay, so I looked online. Found this Alcoholics Anonymous meeting on Zoom. Don't know anyone in it at the time. Never had heard of it other than in movies. I said, wow, I am so-called effed up here. Yeah. And started going every night. And it was on Zoom. And, I think those people changed me because I realized, oh my gosh, you guys are dealing with the same stuff I am in different manners. Again, different contexts, different stories, but again, same similar line we're on, that thin line. So January came around 2021, and now I'm not really going out as much. My social life's kind of quiet because of the alcohol consumption has gone down to a zero. Because November 25th, 2020, I quit drinking. Right. So January 2021 comes around, start the podcast, call it CanadianPodcast.ca. And I wanted to talk to Canadians, not just about the highs in their life. Right. What are some of the lows? How did you get through it? Because I think we can all learn from that story. Yeah, right? We can all talk about, look how much money I have, or look at what I own, or look at the success I have. But what about the downtimes? Yeah. How did you get through it?
What's interesting as well is that we were kind of talking a bit about the social media world and how everyone's presenting amazing. It's always that amazing presentation. And there's certainly a big wave of people saying, hey, it's not all about that. And there's more to life than just being amazing. And there's the downtime, the hard stuff.
And social media is a highlight reel, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Look at how great I'm doing. And sometimes people are doing great, which is amazing. Yeah. But at the same time, I hope people realize there's something beyond that smile. Yeah. I see some couples posting excessively. Yeah. You guys good?
Yeah. I saw I don't know if it was anecdotal or if someone had actually done a proper study, but they said that couples that post a lot, they very likely don't last. It's interesting because it's almost like they're overselling something.
Justification. Look at us.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I'm so happy.
Yeah. Look how happy we are. Yeah. That's interesting. So, yeah.
I miss the good old days. I was going through so many photo albums at home. Yeah. And, when we used to have family come over and you'd open the photo albums and everyone sit and look at our trip or look at what we did. Yeah. And there's some beauty and simplicity. So that's why, being in the AI world, it's great, but there's got to be balance.
Yeah. That actually opens up a memory that... And actually, I was looking at a photo album over the weekend, and it's at someone else's house, and it's like, this is way better than whatever the heck we're doing now, because there's no photo album now. Now everything you have to scroll through someone's Flickr account or whatever, and it just, I don't know.
It takes away from it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Digital clutter.
Yeah. I think we have to go back to the photo album. They're pretty great.
I recently did that for my sister. I made a copy of our family's photo albums, and I'm still going through it. I mean, gosh, it takes a while. But take each one out, scan it, get it printed. Yeah. But at the same time, it's nostalgic. It's so beautiful. Yeah. It takes you back in time.
Yeah. And then also, we have, in the back, I'll show you later, but we have a whole collection of, cameras that are just 35 mil cameras, or it's all film cameras, and you have to you get what you get when you hit that button. You don't get to look at it and do it again, and you get what you get.
And sometimes family members, their eyes would be closed, and it didn't matter.
Yeah,
the red eye.
Something good about it. I don't know.
So when I got sober. It's now been 4 years. Mm-hmm. So it's been a great feeling. I'm able to go back to things I once enjoyed as a child. Again, like the AI film stuff is just a creative medium for me. But I like painting. I liked drawing. I like taking pictures. Going outside, going for that long walk. It just feels good again. Not feeling hungover. Not feeling like always apologizing. Yeah, it feels good.
Does it feel like you get into this fog and then you've now lifted yourself out, or is there some analogy type situation where you were in it, now you're out of it, and you can look back at it, and how does
I think it's a journey. I think it's something, the minute you think you're good, it's the beginning to the end. Mm-hmm. So there's always something to learn, and every day there's something that you're learning about yourself again, relearning, growing up, and I think it's beautiful. I think if you found your way, I think you have a moral duty, I believe, to give back. Whatever you can, pass that baton, right? Because at the end of the day, what's the use? We're not taking anything with us when we leave. Yeah. We come here empty-handed and we go empty-handed, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say it's funny. It's not funny, but it's interesting when I listen to anyone who's had any sort of addictive type of situation, whatever it is, and I look back at my life and I think, I don't have anything. I don't have the experience. So I can...
And many of my friends don't, and it's great, right? But then if some people have faced darkness, I think we have a duty to pass the light on again. Yeah. And, the Canadian podcast, it's been incredible. You just got to talk to so many Canadians from all across the world, or across Canada and the world, and they've just said, hey, this is what I've been doing. This is what worked for me. Yeah. And it's not always dark. It's it just... could be anything. Yeah.
Is there any crazy story from any of your shows?
Crazy.
I'll tell you one. So early on, when we started our podcast, we had on a comedian, and it's very unlikely he'll ever see this. So, and I don't remember his name, but anyways, he came on, and he was he was certainly a stand-up guy, but he was also a bit of a physical comedian too, and so we start. And his bit is that he's going to, stand up and turn his butt to the camera and kind of, be adjusting his pants. And I was like, oh, this is so completely unusual. I wasn't ready for that at all. But it was an interesting eye-opener because I thought, I guess in my mind, I assumed that most comedians were this improv-y sort of crowd that, they just roll with anything that comes up. And probably a lot of them are. This guy literally had a binder, and he was flipping through looking for jokes and stuff. Yeah, It was really interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah. I would have thought it would have just been.
Yeah, but no, he literally had a binder that he was referring to. So it was wild.
You didn't see the flashcards?
Yeah, I don't know. That would have made more sense. But,
exactly. Yeah. No, so it's been great. I've had again artists on veterans. And gosh, their stories are incredible. Yeah. To hear what they've gone through and, kind of keep Canada safe. Yeah. For their families.
That's the veteran thing in Canada is quite interesting. We don't have the same veteran thing that the U.S. has. I don't know if that
Well, you really go to any game in the U.S., they stop the games. Yeah. They celebrate them. Yeah. And they, lift them up. I think here, it'd be nice to see that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and,
we have Remembrance Day. Yeah. And then people move on. I think, every day is a day to remember. We're here for a reason.
Yeah, and you if you go to, big dinners and stuff, oftentimes if they bless the food, which a lot of places do, in the States they would remember veterans and our warriors and our soldiers. And we don't do that in Canada. It's just not a Canadian thing. I don't know.
Well, I hope that changes.
Yeah, would be nice. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how you get past that because in some ways it's a stigma that we apply a stigma to the armed forces, which I think it's unearned completely. So I don't know.
I think there's a stigma to a lot of things out there.
Yeah, well, yes. Some of them we get behind and promote it, and others we just don't. Yeah. Yeah, it's very odd.
So. And then a couple years later, I created Mental.
Yes. Yeah, you were mentioning that before. Yeah. So
it's I had spoken to a few of the veterans. I said, I have this idea. Mm-hmm. and I had the domain name for a couple years now, and I said, I really want to do this, but I don't know if I'm better now. Like, am I okay? Like,
yeah.
Because you don't want to start something and then just stop.
Yeah, right.
So, can I do this? Do I have support? Mm-hmm. And I said, what if I fall? They said, Zach, we're here.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all you need is that little bit of spark, right? That aha moment in life to say, okay, I'm going to be okay, no matter what.
Yeah.
And, I created a videos, and the next thing you know, they, one after another, they start creating them. Mm-hmm. And it was so neat to see that happen. And then, you got first responders, you've got everyday folks going to work.
Yeah.
Just saying, hey, this is what I do for my mental health. And it's just nice to hear that word. This is what I do for my mental health or mental well-being. Because, again, we can all talk about the down times and the depressing stuff. But that doesn't get anybody anywhere at times. Yeah. Like, if I'm just putting that on you, you're thinking, okay. Like, you'll feel bad.
Yeah.
But now what? Right? I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah. Now what?
So
how do we open the conversation? So, I got people to go out there and say, tell me one thing. 30 seconds long, 1 minute long. If you don't feel like going on camera, maybe you want to just write it. Maybe you want to take a picture of something you like to do. Maybe it's a park with a dog in there. That's what you like to do for your mental well-being. So everyone could be involved.
When you do that, this is a sociologist in me coming out, do you see a theme? Like, is there something that a large group of people do that's very common?
Absolutely. The outdoors. Nature.
Yeah.
Fitness.
Right.
Movement with the body. And I think that's incredible. I know I need to do more of that at times, but that's what I have noticed is movement. Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. I think there's, I think a lot of people in my world anyways, they say, I work out, that's my mental health place. And so I just go there, I shut down my brain for everything else, and I just do what I got to do. So that's a good way to go.
I think the other one for myself I've been noticing lately is we're overly stimulated with this technology. In this world we're in right now, there's so much thrown at us.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about politics, we can talk about AI, we can talk about so much in one conversation at times, and it can get overwhelming, especially in the digital world. Like, you'll be talking to somebody and he sends you a funny meme. The next one is an AI thing. The next one is, I don't know, tariffs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got to talk about tariffs. But, you're totally right on the overstimulation. And someone years ago said, and I forget who it was now, but they said that kids these days, because we got to point at somebody and you guys are the problem. But they said kids these days have no idea how to be bored. When I was a kid, I was bored a lot, but we had to deal with it. But kids now can't be bored, which is interesting, hey? So they kind of have to wake up to stimulus, go to bed to stimulus. So it's...
Here's the iPad.
Yeah, exactly. So, whereas, like, you're right. Like, when we put kids in the car today, we have to turn on the video, give them a phone or something to entertain them while we're doing it. And versus when I was a kid, it was like,
look outside, kick the back of the seat.
Count vehicles or something. I don't know.
Where's the purple cow?
Yeah, it was wild. It was interesting. You brought up tariffs, and that's it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And we try not to be too political. No, and I don't know, what are your thoughts on tariffs these days, and now that it's become a big thing? Tariffs have always existed. This is not new.
It's not new. I mean, it's been around for years, decades.
Yeah.
I think we're living in a polarized time right now. So anything is amplified.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
absolutely.
Pre-pandemic, I think, if this conversation had happened, there would have been a way we would have navigated through it. Some way or another. I think now with social media and, again, X and everything out there, the voices are just so loud.
Yeah.
And I think for the better in some ways, and in some ways not so much. I think I miss the days where we could kind of hear a few narratives, but again, it's nice to hear from everyone. Oh my God, there's just so many voices.
Yeah. Well, and part of the reality of a tariff is that it's not this simple thing.
No.
It's not like saying, hey, we're going to
25%. That's
like that
on
means,
what?
Yeah, like unless you're an economist and have studied tariffs, you probably don't have a valid opinion that really is gonna shape the future. Like you got to think like it's pretty involved, all these tariffs. So,
what do you think though when you're hearing this 25% tariff? Do you think, oh my God, it's on everything that comes across the border? Because I don't think that's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't happen.
Well, and I guess I saw the list, and it was funny. I was at the gym this morning, and the Marky Mark song came on about Pump Up the Jam. And jam is actually one of the items that's on the list of tariffs. And it's like, whatever. It's so out there. And I think what's going to end up happening is that if I'm a good negotiator, and like I think Donald Trump is probably an extremely good negotiator, he's just applying pressure where pressure needs to be applied to be a good negotiator. And then it's going to balance out, and we're going to figure it all out. And yeah, you know what? We've been having tariff discussions for as long as I've been alive about, what's going on with softwood, now what's going on with metal and water, and everything gets tariffed, and there's backwards and forward tariffs. And the free trade agreement throws a whole other conversation into the mix. And it's like, they're going to sort it out, and
but look beyond that. It's why are they doing this? What are the reasonings? And I think some of it is to tighten up the borders.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't think that there's not anything wrong with that. I think it's
that's right. I was having a super short conversation this morning with a friend at the gym, and he immediately walked up and said, "How about the tariffs?" And then I said, "Well, maybe we should put a tariff on the illegal firearms that are universally coming from the United States into Canada. And then every time we find one, we're going to send the U.S. a bill for that, and it's going to be really, really high. And but it would be impossible to do it. We'll have to think through the actual plan, but yeah, it's in my mind, it's going to balance out at some point. There's no way that either government is going to throw out a bunch of tariffs that are going to wildly punish one population. It's just not going to happen. And even if they did, that's economics. And if the price of something goes way up, the consumption of it starts to go down. And so it will balance. That's the basis of all economic theory, is that things tend to settle to the middle. So it'll balance out.
Maybe we'll need an AI robot to negotiate as our prime minister.
Yeah. Some might argue that that's already happened.
Yeah.
So who knows? Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna. It's probably more noise than anything.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the thing. You almost got to tune off a few things now. It just. Yeah. I have a few friends of mine that send me political information daily.
Yeah.
This is coming out. This is coming out. And they say I can't sleep or I'm stressed. I said, why do you want to send that to me then? Because I'm gonna. It's just too much. Yeah. You almost have to put a wall up under certain few things. Yeah. What to see, what not to see right now.
Yeah, we had Todd Hirsch on the program a little while ago, and he was. I think his mindset too was, even if one party's like, oh, we're going to tariff all this stuff, well, we're going to tariff stuff too, and it ends up in a balance. It's usually what ends up happening. And quite frankly, like if the U.S. imposes a major tariff on some item that they feel like they're trying to encourage development in the U.S. and discourage in Canada, then it'll come into a balance. Mm-hmm. That's all that's going to end up happening. Like you can't tariff oil and gas, and then the initial situation is going to be, there's 2 points, but the initial situation is you're going to increase costs somewhere. And it's not just going to be production costs. It will get transferred off to consumers. Like the U.S. cannot survive without our heavy oil, without going directly to Venezuela to get it. And there's a really not great message of going to Venezuela to get oil. Like it's a moral issue, an ethical issue at some point. So, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how it actually plays out.
We'll have to put a tariff on Hawkins Cheesies.
With Tim Hortons.
Yeah. Well, it's owned by the States now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I think Burger King, actually.
Yeah.
We've lost quite a bit of our brands. Hudson Bay is owned by Macy's.
Is it really?
It is.
I didn't know that. I've always, this is kind of like a super side point, because we look at our world and we have I don't know about you, but it feels like 75% of my shopping that's like not groceries is Amazon. And then it's like this flood of boxes, like it's wild. And I think of Hudson Bay, and then further back we think of Sears. Sears in my mind was the original Amazon.
Oh yes,
because you had a massive catalog, which was.
Sears or the Eaton's catalog.
Yeah. And then you went on and you would order those items, and then you'd have to go pick it up because it wouldn't be delivered to you. But it feels like Sears and even JCPenney, they were all like, they're gone now, but I feel like they were kind of the original Amazon, and they missed out on the opportunity as
it's interesting
was coming up.
When you see the Eaton's catalog back in the day, you go to the community in Calgary of Ramsey, you will see Eaton catalog homes.
What?
So you could purchase a home, they'd bring it there as a kit home, and you'd have to get it built. Yes.
Eaton's? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
I went by Vulcan maybe last year sometime, and around there's this home. It's a kit homes you could buy for the farms back in the day, and I think CPR had a catalog as well. That you could buy a kit home for your farm.
Wow. I don't think that's still available.
It is again, but you can buy it on Amazon now. A kit home.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean it's more of a cube, but
yeah. That's pretty wild. I still have a tie from Eaton's.
Oh, do you?
Isn't that weird? Yeah,
That's
I keep
awesome.
it. I don't touch it because it's like a piece of like history. It's the only thing I know for sure came from Eaton's. So we spend a lot of time there. Kids don't even know what it is now. It's just
it was a good store.
It's in the past.
And do you think we'll ever see that again? Department stores coming back, Canadian department stores, or a Canadian brand again, an iconic Canadian brand. Yeah. So when you think Hudson
Canadian
Bay,
Tire is pretty unique.
Absolutely, but again, I'm pretty sure it's not owned by a Canadian company.
Really? Mm-hmm. I'll have to check it. It is unique. Like if you go to the States and say, hey, we got this store in Canada called Canadian Tire, and you can buy everything from gum to pots and pans to fishing lures to tires to Christmas trees. And it's like, what are you even talking about? It's a wild store,
oh, yeah.
really.
I love Canadian Tire. I love going there.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about some of these retail stores, and you think of Walmart, and Walmart, not that long ago, was a department store only without groceries.
Woolco?
Well, yeah, there was Woolco before that. We spent a lot of time at Woolco. But Walmart didn't have groceries for a long time.
I didn't know that.
Where would Walmart be without groceries today? Like, would you still go to just a department store, which could be replaced by
I don't think
a lot of department stores? Because that's what Zellers was.
Yeah.
And even, I don't know, Target sells groceries now. I don't think these retail stores would exist without the food component now.
Target didn't do well here.
No, that was crazy.
Yeah, but it just shows something in the States comes here.
Yeah,
it's not always the same price, the same value that we're getting.
Yeah, I think that was. I don't know. I don't know the whole story, and it's probably an MBA study on Target. But I think what happened. This is my opinion only. But I think what happened was when they came to Canada, they couldn't get the same distributors or suppliers that they had in the States.
Interesting. Okay.
And so when my experience going to Target was that you would go to the toilet paper row, and it would be like an entire row of one kind of toilet paper, like one brand, different sizes, and it was like there's no options.
So there's no Charmin, there's no Purex.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out. Yeah.
But when you go to the States, it's much more of a good experience than Canada ever was. It was a totally different store. So
I mean, I think you're hearing. I saw yesterday actually. PV Mart, they're closing all their stores.
What? No way.
Yeah, all across Canada, I think 90+ stores are getting closed. Yeah.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Wonder who's taking over. Like,
I'm not sure.
You can't just
I haven't
shut that
read
down.
on it, but I'd seen it. A few people have posted it now, so I said, "Wow,
huh?
It's gonna be sad." Yeah, that was a good store
Did
too.
you shop there a lot?
Not really, but I've been there a few times for garden supplies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in the small towns.
Yeah.
That's neat.
They're big in the small town. I don't know. That's kind of your farm supply. I don't know where else you would go.
Well, it's almost like when you used to see Burger Baron.
Yeah.
And then BP's came around, and now you're seeing the brew houses everywhere. The Canadian.
Yeah.
So you're seeing this evolution.
Yeah. I think one thing that you do see is chains that are able to adopt something that customers can expect, that's what they want. And they keep going back to the brand that they're familiar with, it seems like. So.
But tell me this, like when we think about adoption and branding and evolving, like, if Eaton's or Sears had looked at Amazon's model and applied that, I mean, they would have been ahead. You looked at hotels, if they had applied a little bit of the Airbnb model, where would they be today? I mean, although it's going back. Now people are going to boutique hotels, and again, there's all these restrictions on Airbnbs in certain cities. So,
did you see there was the guy who came up with the Airbnb concept?
Yeah,
did you see?
I know who he is.
He did a little video clip on where it came from.
Brian Chesky, yes.
Yeah, and it came from. He came home and couldn't pay the rent on his place, and then
couch surfed, didn't he?
Yeah, well, and then he actually had inflatable mattresses, and that's where the air from Airbnb comes from.
Interesting.
So like he had inflatable mattresses. There was a big IT conference in the city he was in, and he just put it out on whatever social media was then and said, "Hey, I got a bunch of air mattresses if you guys want to stay here." And he got like 5 or 6 people to come stay, and that's where Airbnb comes from. That's wild.
That is wild.
So
it is interesting. I mean, God, you see so many of these entrepreneurs doing some cool things. I mean, you think Starbucks, you think Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Well, and then I think, it's interesting because you're an entrepreneur, as am I, and I think part of being an entrepreneur is being in the right place at the right time, too, because it's like and it was interesting because my son's in university, and one of his programs, they asked him, I don't know what, it's a pretty weird program, but they asked them to, as a group, come up with a product, and they had to pitch it and they said this is an entrepreneurial sort of thing. But in my mind, inventing something is an inventor's job. An entrepreneur sees the opportunity of the bigger picture of turning it into a machine that can make profit, whereas an inventor is just they come up with.
And we hear that all the
stuff.
time. I mean, you've seen Steve Jobs. I think he might have been more of the entrepreneur, and then Steve Wozniak was the inventor.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lady, I saw only a small portion of a clip on YouTube, and she was talking about how Steve Jobs didn't really invent anything. Like he basically kind of brought things together that other people had come up with and turned it into the machine that it was. So he was visionary, we'll give him that. But
well, when you have an IT guy around, they can get so technical.
Yeah.
And to the everyday folk, they don't care. Yeah. Will it work? Will I be able to do what I need to do? And I think, again, with AI right now, you're seeing a lot of that jargon, machine learning, LLMs, large language models. For the regular person, they think, what the heck?
Yeah,
like, I'm just trying to get this task done. Will it be?
I just need a recipe.
Exactly. So I think that's going to be, there's going to be a bridge needed there. You know? How do you talk to regular folks to get them to get that task done without overwhelming them? Because again, AI, that word scares people too. You got to simplify it.
Yeah, and there's also now, I guess, I kind of, ChatGPT was, it's like, okay, the world just flipped on the AI switch is kind of how it seemed. Maybe it wasn't really what was happening in the bigger IT world, but it seemed like that was the switch. And then now, I don't even know where you start. You almost need an AI machine that can go out and look for AI machines that does the thing that you want to do.
So I agree.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like there's ones that create resumes. There's ones that, it's just.
And then some of the tools you tried don't work, right? And you said, great, I wasted my time and energy. Yeah. And you're busy. People are busy. So that's kind of where I see myself evolving in this industry is in the AI agents. So creating, like you say, hey, Zach, I have a podcast. I need to do this. I just need to expedite it. Carol can do some other important tasks. I just need this done. Yeah. And it'll be built for you, customized.
Yeah. There was I talked about this before at some point. There was it's a little box essentially. It's like it's called the Rabbit.
Okay.
You should check it out. It's basically it's like that where they use like large language and it's supposed to simplify your access to AI and do things for you. So it replaces the phone because the phone has inherent issues because it's a phone and it's not just an AI tool. So it's interesting that someone came up with this. I don't know what the adoption is going to be, Because now you got to carry a second device, right? And it was doing some of the stuff you were saying. It's like, I need an Uber, order the Uber, and then, I need to do these things, book a trip. Here's my parameter. So
it's interesting. It's going to be like having a pager again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the guy who invented it, what he acknowledged in the cell phone is that the problem with the cell phone is that you have to go through the user interface of the phone to get to the AI, whereas this tool is going to allow you to kind of bypass all the stuff and get straight to the AI. Which is interesting. It's an interesting sort of way to look at it.
It's funny what happened yesterday with AI. I mean, this is the first time in history the largest stock market crash was yesterday, Blue Monday, and because of a company called DeepSeek AI.
Really?
So NVIDIA is a leader in AI. They're doing some incredible stuff. But there's these chips that this DeepSeek company in China has that tanked NVIDIA's stock $600 billion. And so you're thinking about these numbers and you're thinking astronomical. And this is we're just at the tip of the iceberg of AI. And I like to tell people, I know we were talking about cameras earlier, is this is the silent film era of AI.
Yeah.
This is just a beginning. It's pretty cool to be a part of it right now.
Yeah.
And see it evolve and meet so many cool people that are in this space as well. I'm enjoying it. I know there's this lashback towards it, but I think it's okay.
It was wild, and I think we think of a lot of these IT type things as they just always work. And other than if my phone goes dead, the battery's dead, and it's like I'm stuck. But it was interesting, and maybe we're putting a pin in this, when TikTok falls under the radar. It's on the radar now, and the government's like, hey, this might not be the right thing to do. Somehow they're able to just unplug TikTok from the world. It's like, how do you where's the switch for that? Is someone controlling that switch? And then you think well, TikTok isn't the same across the world. How is it being controlled so that I see a different TikTok than someone in China or someone in Greece, perhaps? It's interesting that it's possible.
And for the listeners, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
In China, they learn math.
Yeah.
They're learning educational content. Here, we have a lot of dancing.
How to dance.
You're right.
It's wild.
Again, it goes back to IP addresses and positioning and firewalls and all that jazz. But at the same time, you got the app stores here, Android and iOS for Apple. They turned them off, remember, for 16 hours. And then the Trump administration had said, okay, turn them back on.
Where's the switch? That's an
Apple
amazing
headquarters, Google headquarters.
Yeah. That's an amazing piece of someone's able to turn that on and off, I guess, which is, I think that goes outside of what would make sense to most young people, because the assumption is that it exists and it will always exist and it's just there. It doesn't have to be there.
Correct. Imagine a world today without internet or data. What would it be like?
Better. We'd probably be outside throwing sticks at stuff. So, I don't know.
Send a pigeon.
Ooh. Yeah, it'd be wild.
Zach, here's the podcast date. You send your pigeon to me and I read the note. Okay.
Yeah. It's there's a social sociologist, we'll go with that. He's a Canadian guy named Gwyn Dyer, and he has a really great video, and it's probably almost impossible to find, but he talks about the rise of communication, really, and as communication rises, you can run a chart of how democracy actually expands throughout the world. And before there was communication that you could spread, there really wasn't any form of democracy. Isn't that wild? And now we have ubiquitous communication. It's amazing how much we communicate. And it was funny. This is just random thoughts by Craig. I was watching a World War I video, and it was fascinating that a plane that was spotting ships in the ocean, if they shot out a audio message on the wireless radio, they called it wireless, which is interesting because we still have wireless today. If they shot out that message, then the enemy that they were ratting out would be able to triangulate where that message got received, and that would identify where that other group of ships was. And so what they would do, this is shocking. This is like really like 1919, right?
Okay.
World War II, World War I era. So what these planes would do that were flying under 100 miles an hour is they would signal back to their carrier group with a light. They would send a flashing light and send Morse code while they're in an airplane back to a ship. That is crazy.
Yeah.
And without that, and it was like a common theme in most of these things is the message was misunderstood. The message didn't get sent. Someone sent the wrong message, and it just turns into this wild chaos. So, and now we communicate constantly. It's like nonstop.
You know, we wanted to be connected to the world. Now all we want to do is to be disconnected. Yeah. And I think, you know, for my own well-being, I like to be disconnected.
Yeah.
I'll take breaks.
Yeah.
It's too much. Too many conversations going on at once.
Yeah.
I need it.
Yeah, and it's nice. You go off to the mountains somewhere, and there's
yes.
you just drive into Kananaskis, and the phone goes bars tipping down to no service, and then you're.
You know, I love old cars, like vintage cars, and the reason I like them is because they got that lap belt. You gotta roll the window down and crank it, and then there's no tech in there.
Yeah.
And it's funny for a guy that loves tech. I just actually also like that. And my thing is I enjoy going to abandoned towns and small towns across the West. It is incredible. Yeah. And it's so neat to, again, meet folks from those little local pubs and have a bite there, or just go check out, hey, this ruins, or this one church that had so many stories. And now, again, it's abandoned. No one's there.
That is wild.
The grain elevators, I mean, they're going down, you know. I think I read something about 5 to 10 a year are going.
Really?
We used to have like 1,500 in Alberta. Now we are at like 150 or something like that.
It's funny, 'cause, you know, our kids are our grandkids possibly, they'll not know what a grain elevator is.
No, well, we'll see these giant terminals. And again, from a business standpoint, like, I understand. But from a cultural heritage standpoint, you know, you're going to miss them. I mean, those are the prairie cathedrals. Those are the skylines, the rural skyline.
Yeah, and they're in so many oil paintings. And, a lot of people
What is this now?
Yeah, what is that thing? Actually, up in Edmonton, I think on, if you drive straight on Edmonton, Calgary Trail? It's Calgary Trail as you come into Edmonton. If you go straight to where it ends at Saskatchewan Drive.
Yellowhead? Or,
no, it's like it ends at the river. But there's a grain elevator there that was converted to a residential building.
Wow, I gotta check that out. That is cool.
So basically, if you come in like it's like you're heading to downtown on the main drag in from Calgary, and you just go straight. You don't take the ring roads. You'll end up ending at, I think it's Saskatchewan Drive, and then it's right there. It's kind of like in the university zone, so White Avenue University zone.
I want to create something one day is a technology where you can go to these certain places. Because I go online, I'll say, oh, great, the grain elevator, I'll go visit that site. Oh, it got torn down last year. I'm like, darn, how neat would it be to actually put up a phone and see the augmented reality of this is where it was? Again, you can see people working around it just to kind of show that culture of that community. Because, again, all those buildings are slowly going. Yeah. And the younger generations, give or take, for the most part, are not going back there. Because, again, for jobs and such. Yeah. Some do, but the majority aren't.
Yeah, I took a bunch of scouts on, you reminded me of this. I took a bunch of scouts on a hiking trip, and it was tough. It was a lot uphill, and it was going to be amazing. It was a Cirque Lake back in Kananaskis, and as we're hiking, this one kid is like, I hate this. I never want to do this again. And I'm like, you're never going to see this lake unless you hike up there. You're just not going to experience it. And he goes, have you ever heard of Google Earth? It's like, crap, you got me there. But I don't think it's the same. But he was so ready with his answer. Dang, it's like, you kind of got me a little bit. Yeah. I wasn't quite ready for it. But.
Was it Beehive?
No, it was, I don't remember which one it was. No, it won't come back to me. It was too many years ago.
That's all good. You're in staffing. Where do you see AI coming into
AI
industry?
So it's...
is it a conversation that happens?
It is a bit, outside of, there's definitely jobs for AI people, like people who know AI. That's kind of a different thing.
Like not data scientists, machine learning, or prompt engineers. I'm not talking just ChatGPT. I'm thinking like, is there opportunities for AI technology?
I think where AI's hit most in the staffing industry is that people struggle making their own resumes, and when you see this wide variety of resumes, and some are just like, what are you doing? That is terrible. And other people's clearly were created by AI or someone else. And so there is a lot of tools right now where people are redoing resumes, and that it's important to present yourself properly. There's also maybe a layer down. That's almost a given, but the layer down is going into AI saying, I'm going for an interview here. Give me a list of questions that I should ask intelligently of that business. So it's like it's part of interview prepping, which has been good. On the search side, so we're in, we go and headhunt people essentially. I don't know if it's necessarily gotten there yet, because AI does depend on access to data, and if that data doesn't exist, then the AI is only as good as the data that exists online. And so a lot of people, because they don't post online, they're hard to find. And if what we're trying to do is find someone and they don't exist online, then the AI tool just, they kind of stops at the door, right? And so AI is good for filtering through things, but it's still at this point, it's not good enough to take over. Like, we still have to look at things and say, my gut's this, and like there's a lot of gut.
It'll be interesting if there's a way to siphon and just kind of expedite some of the processes. Not take over, but it helps you say, okay, well, God, these were terrible resumes. Why? It's like all that time going through them. I know it's the norm. You've been doing it for years, but if you could get rid of that, now you could just go through this pile. But again, you go back to biases. You go back to,
and part of the challenge in it is that an AI tool would miss something that you'd have to see through kind of the human eye of saying, oh, I think that person actually might be something that it's not saying anywhere on this resume. So the other place that AI does play into it too is, every staffing organization uses, like, whether it's a big oil and gas company or a small company or a recruiting company, everyone's starting to use applicant tracking tools, and those tools allow you to database resumes essentially, and then the AI, it's now built into almost all those tools, and it's predictive. So when you say, I'm looking for this, it goes to the database to try to find that. It's
kind of like a filter, right?
Yeah, it does need some work, and we use it. It still needs work, but it's not terrible. There is actually quite a few companies that have created, it's still early in the process, but they've created AI interviews.
Yes, I've heard of that.
That'll be interesting. I don't know how that'll play out.
Like a virtual interview.
New. Yeah, so basically you're interviewing with an AI computer, like an AI system. You're not actually talking to a person, but you're going through the interview process. So
kind of odd.
Interesting. Yeah. So
where do you see it being a useful tool in the future?
Well, I think it's still,
or like an energy company. Where would you see that?
Yeah, I think it allows prediction, which is really good. And when you think of, what a geologist does, for instance, right? And so you can then look at all of Alberta much quicker than a geologist could and say, predict.
Make a seismic decision.
Make a seismic decision. Where is there waste? Where is there higher potential of waste risk? Where's there, where can we then put a pipeline that's most efficient? And it does take away some of the, that type of experience for an oil and gas company. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they do it. Because when you think of some of the old companies in oil and gas that have downhole data, which their whole company was downhole data, and that's all they did. And back back, it was probably about 20 years ago, we were staffing into companies that their entire business was taking data that was downhole data, and it would be on microfiche, and then those people were entering it manually into a database, and that's all they did. Like it was, and then big companies were buying that data set.
And now where is that data set now?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure.
Because it'd be neat to see is what they do with it now, because AI can make those decisions quicker. Right?
Yeah.
There's so many of these guys.
I think it's not an AI thing, but one of the interesting things that has happened, it's a massive transition that probably went under the radar a little bit, was, back, let's say, 15-ish years, and certainly 20 years ago, every serious company had cold rooms in their building, in their company, where they would have their rack of servers.
Yes.
And, if a server went down, there was an IT guy had to pull something out and stick something in. You had to change data. And then at the same time, the IT department was responsible for all the upgrades. And, if something needed to be changed over to different software, that's all gone. Like, completely gone. Like, and there was even, like, construction companies today, there's several that I know of that have gone in and, they've spent hundreds of thousands removing a single cold room that has a raised floor. They have to like peel it all out, and all the extra structure that was attached to it all has to go out, and it's wild, and that stuff's gone.
Even at home, those wires everywhere that we used to have.
Yeah.
Cables running everywhere.
And now everything just goes that direction, just into the
somewhere
cloud.
in a cloud, and it's hard to explain the cloud to someone.
Yeah.
It is,
It's wild. It's such a massive transition, and it's some ways it's because AI. I think AI is sexier than just pushing things out to the cloud. But
it's a buzzword, right? It's a trendy word. It's something that again, you can get caught up in the hype.
Yeah,
you got to go back to where do you need it? What is the challenge you have, and what can this be the solution for? Because again, everyone's like, I want to bring AI into my business. Well, why?
Yeah, what you do roofing. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah. Well, we want to bring AI, augment it, and automate certain things.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Autonomous crane.
Yeah. That's interesting. There's a lot of 3D printing of houses and stuff now.
So cool.
That's wild. So, hey,
thank you.
We've been here a bit, but I want to ask you one thing too, because we talked about it very briefly, but when you get into the podcast world, I think young people especially, they hear all these things. It's like, oh, you're getting into the podcast, and you're probably making hundreds of thousands of dollars now on your podcast, and it must be such a good thing. So what's been your experience?
From the personal side, it's definitely fulfilling, because it's something I'm genuinely interested in. People, storytelling, and understanding where they come from, why they do what they do. From the technical side, that's a different boat. It's a juggernaut. It's a beast. It's a workload. You got to get prepared for that. During the pandemic, you saw a lot of folks create a podcast, which I thought was really cool. And people asked, hey, should I start a podcast? I said, yes, but just be prepared, because it's not just the interview. It's the editing. It's the social media captions. It's the conversations. Can you do that? And again, it doesn't go to, here's a list of questions, let me ask you them on a podcast. Get to know your guest. Try to figure it out, but be uniquely you. And I think you should try it, but again, be prepared. It's not just the interview.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it.
Yeah. And as soon as you get into you can sit here and do exactly what we're doing, and then we can just flip the switch off and the lights are off and nothing happens after this. But then we're not posting it anywhere. No one else will ever see that. Then you got to get it out to those people to see it, and the advertising. Yeah, it's
the editing process. That takes forever too.
Yeah. I think when I first started, I was doing some of the editing myself, and it was like, this is ridiculous. Like, at first, I couldn't stand watching myself. That was probably the worst of it, and I don't want to see that ever again.
I'm with you on that. It's a little uncomfortable at first, but then you just kind of get over it and like, whatever. Yeah. This is who I am.
I don't watch my videos once they've gone out. So once I actually won't see this. Really, I'll see the shorts, but I won't see the video. So,
what is the reasoning?
I don't know. I just like I think I was in the conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't need to. I suppose if I had to go back and reference something, but I was in the conversation. I don't need to relive the conversation. I had it with you.
Exactly.
So
unless there was like, what was that title of that
exactly.
company or that brand? Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that's why. We certainly don't do it for money.
No,
I remember,
absolutely not.
This is kind of funny. We post everything up on YouTube, and everyone's, oh man, you're gonna make all this money, and then there's that monetization button, and YouTube recently changed their monetization rules, and so for a while there we were under the earlier rules, and we were clicking along, and I think we had made like 28 cents, and then they changed the rules, and all that money was gone, and it was just like it showed this graph of where you are and where you need to be to get monetized, and it's like nobody. Who is there? I don't get that at all. It is so far away.
Well, the other thing is people would listen to Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, great, he got that Spotify deal.
Yeah.
So let's start a podcast. Or you'd see a lot of guys create them in certain niches. And I think it's kind of neat as long as you kind of follow through with them, because I saw, 8, 9 episodes and then they'll just stop.
Yeah. And that's a tough part, because you probably get this too, where people will say, "Oh, you do a podcast. What's it about?" This is like the most natural question, right? What would you say? Like, how would you answer that?
Well, I would say it's something to do with Canadians, and it's mental health, mental wellness, and again the ups and downs of life and the journey that we're all on.
Yeah,
so that's what it's about.
That's good. Is it pretty themed that way? Is that what
absolutely? Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's good.
We'll have an artist on. We'll talk about the art, but what makes you do what you do? Why do you do it?
Yeah, I haven't figured out the answer to the question yet. So
we'll have to have you on.
Sure.
That'll be fun.
It'll be fun. So yeah.
Thank you again for having me.
So yeah, awesome to have you. So glad you could come in. We'll do it again.
Yes.
We'll find the next topic. So
let's do it.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.